Hey, it's Jordan. I am here in Warren, Michigan. We are at the local United Auto Workers building, where just in a few minutes we'll start basically a community meeting about the General Motors layoffs. If you've been living under a rock, actually you don't have to be living under a rock. CNN and these outlets probably didn't tell you about this, but General Motors is actually set to lay off almost 15,000 blue-collar and white-collar workers in total throughout this year. Where we are in Warren, Michigan, they're laying off 1,300 workers from the Warren Technical Center, as well as the Warren Transmission Plant. Obviously, General Motors is one of the big three automakers, and General Motors, along with Chrysler and I believe Ford, was given in total, $81 billion bailout from the federal government a few years ago. General Motors got $51 billion of that. Not to mention, as part of Donald Trump's tax cuts, aka the tax giveaway for wealthy donors and yacht owners, General Motors got $514 million in savings from Trump's tax cuts. So you got $51 billion in federal bailout money and $514 million in tax cuts, and now they're laying off basically, I believe it's 10 to 15% of their workforce, and nearly 15,000 workers. Workers being affected are in Detroit, in Warren, Michigan, in Lordstown, Ohio, Maryland, as well as Ontario, Canada. There is a lot of reasons for this, and mostly it's because General Motors, its shareholders, and its investors, and its executives want to make as much money as humanly possible and see workers from the UAW and their workers that are actually producing the product that's making them all this money. They don't really see them as human beings. They're not concerned whether they could put food on the table, have medical coverage, those kinds of things. General Motors got $51 billion from the federal government, basically with no strings attached. Then, with Trump's tax giveaway, General Motors got $514 million in savings from the 2017 tax deal. With all of that said, over the last few years, just like in other industries, General Motors has been hiring more and more part-time workers, temp workers, and trying to take back from their full-time workers, cutting their health benefits, cutting their pension plans so that the workers have to pay more. So how is it that a company gets $51 billion in bailout, then you got $514 million in tax breaks, a company that made $8.1 billion in profits last year? That's $8.1 billion with a B. A company that has been so profitable, what the workers I've spoken with here have told me, the last 3 years they've been more profitable than in their entire history. How is it that a company that profitable has to lay off nearly 15,000 workers? And like I said, you're not just screwing the workers, you're basically destroying whole communities. Go through the industrial Midwest, go through the Rust Belt, look at the steel towns, the car towns where the plants have been closed for decades. Look at the boarded up storefronts you'll find in those towns and those cities. Look at the closed down plants, the closed down YMCA centers. So this is what we've been seeing for years and years and years. And they're doing it not because they're hurting for money, but because they want to give their shareholders, they want to give their investors more, they want to give their shareholders and they want to give their investors more of a return on investment. That's it. But who is actually creating that profit for those investors, for those shareholders? It's not the shareholders, it's not the executives up in the offices, it's the workers on the assembly line. So what you have here is essentially corporations that have bought off our government. A lot of politicians, including Nancy Pelosi, by the way, take money from General Motors every year.
Right now, as you all know, our plant is one of those that's been unallocated, and we're trying to, bide our time. Our plant is going to be in a very precarious situation because we're the last plant to go. So it's going to affect how our membership can move to other facilities. And right now, it looks like some of us may have to go to Texas or Tennessee, and it may force some of us to retire that aren't really ready to retire. So I hope that you guys will continue to support us and the people that aren't a part of the UAW that supply the parts for General Motors. Those people will be disenfranchised, as well as the businesses that we support, the stores that in our communities that we support, the community service that we are a part of. All of these people are going to be affected. Our schools, anybody that wants to buy a home, you know, it's like that trickle-down effect, okay? As, was it Ronald Reagan gave us that trickle-down effect? Well, this is the real trickle-down effect.
That's coming all right, great. I do want to make one thing clear, though. I did not come here to sing to you or at you. I came to sing with you. Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the union.
As I speak, there are graduate students who are also members of the UAW who are right now in Manhattan demonstrating in front of the GM building against the plant closures and on behalf of international solidarity. And there were 300 souls at the auto show demonstrating, saying no to the plant closures. And we have a better idea. Rather than closing these plants and creating all this waste, why don't we convert these plants for a new economy, for renewable energy, keep the electric car, and manufacture for the future and retain the jobs that we currently have. We have a major battle on our hands, and that's why we were demonstrating. We have a battle about, are they going to close this plant without a fight? Are they going to close Detroit Hamtramck Assembly without a fight? Are they going to close Brownstone and so on? Are we going to put up a struggle and say, this is absolutely a travesty, and for the sake of not only our jobs, not only the community, as Ghana was mentioning earlier, but there's something about the fact that we have a union here, that once that plant closes, this building will no longer be the node of unionism that it's been for so many years.
Flint is an inspiration to us all, to me in particular. I had a chance to work with some women who were a part of the Flint sit-down strike who had left out of the history. I worked on a little film called With Babies and Banners, the story of women in the Flint sit-down strike. They had been left out, and Lorraine Gray and Bolin and Lynn Goldfarb did a wonderful job, and I had a chance to work for them and meet what we referred to as the Flint Ladies. And the Flint Ladies, let me tell you, I wish I could spend more time telling you about the Flint Ladies, but I'll just give you one quick little anecdote. A woman in her 70s, looks like a sweet church lady. Central Casting sent over a sweet church lady. And she's sitting there and she says, and of course we all had blackjacks. They were made for us by the skilled workers. And we had them on a wristlet. And you just give your wrist a snap, and there you had a weapon. And nobody knew where it came from.
So White Shirt Day is fundamentally about the dignity of work and that we are all equal, right? Whether you're blue collar, whether you're white collar, but I would go even further and say whether or not you're service sector, whether or not you're an undocumented worker working in the fields, no matter what side of an imaginary border that you live on, we are all the same. And to me, that's what wearing a white shirt represents. The fundamental dignity of work.
So stop buying anything. And when they go into negotiations, here's the situation. Across the board, we're not buying nothing. No cars, Not Ford, not Chrysler, not GM. Not negotiate. I got my money in my pocket because I'm already suffering. You got 30, 40,000 people going on the street. I'm just wondering, and the last thing is, if you raise $1 billion, $1 trillion, why don't you become the head of the board or the stockholders' money? Can y'all become stockholders and own the stock and then run your company like you said you wanted to do? Renewable energy, start raising your money. You got all these people, but you're the community. I'm speaking from a community. I'm in Detroit. I'm speaking on behalf of Detroiters. Yeah, I work at the plant. I ain't talking about that right now. I'm coming to you from Detroit, from my community, of people that have been targeted for generations, young people. And you know what? They're not going to have a community. I get out in my community. They don't know what to do. They ain't never been through this before. And all of them, well, what are we going to do? You going to stop spending your money like the little rapper said.
We really can't go back. We have to go on. We have to go on. And the way we're going to go on is not to produce individual cars, but to produce what we need for the 21st century, a mass transit system. And what does that mean? That means electric buses, it means trams, it means small vehicles, it means railroad cars, and that's something that we can make in this area. Okay? Now, actually, I am also from the American Axle plant, and I understand that our plant, if it hadn't been destroyed, would have been great to have turned into wind turbines. So there's other things, too, that we can do. And that's what the folks who came together around the demonstration at the auto show were trying to say is, we will not accept that GM is going to shut these plants down. And if they can't, look, the taxpayer money and the workers own our plant, not GM, and we should take it over, and we should ask the city council to help us to sit down and plan and decide and move on from there. And so we have to be involved in this huge discussion, which has to involve the community and workers, and really a vision and a strategy that's very different from what we've seen before, because there's a restructuring going on, and that restructuring doesn't leave any room for us. So we have to restructure so that we can save our planet.
My name is Bobby Spiegler, and I'm a retiree from UAW Local 6000 state employees. I also was an auto worker for a while and a steel worker. I just wanted to speak to one issue that was sort of raised and sort of not, and that is blaming the Mexican auto workers. Blaming the Mexican auto workers. This was a large theme that was at the UAW sponsored rally downtown at Hart Plaza on January 18th. And it is not the fault of the Mexican auto workers, as somebody else spoke about here. And we have to build solidarity in other countries, and that includes Mexico, and to have confidence in auto workers there, and they're not our enemy. And this is a huge propaganda front, and it's not really putting the blame where the blame belongs, which is on General Motors. And I only say this because it was disheartening to see other UAW members with these slogans on their backs, including our brothers and sisters from Canada. That's another country. We don't go around saying, well, it's the Canadian auto workers' fault because we're having plant closures here. And I think that this is a very divisive and something that we have to really educate our membership on. And I guarantee that a lot of that theme is going to be brought up at the UAW convention.
I feel so emotional today because when I started working at the UAW in 1977 at Solidarity House, there was a sign outside in front of Solidarity House that said how many UAW members they had. At that time, they even had the Canadian workers as part of the union structure at that time. When I sat here today and talked to President Ghana, and I found out how the membership has dropped in this local, it was so depressing to me. But I was somewhat uplifted when I heard the brother talk about some of the solutions. But I think that as a community, we have really got to work hard to bring what we once had back. When I went to the UAW, it was flourishing. We had so many members, and we were so proud to have so many members. But as the membership dwindled, the sign went down. I don't like what's going on in this country. And I know that all of us in this room are very depressed about what's going on in this country. So I want to work jointly with UAW because, like I said, what happens to you as a member of OPEIU and a secretary at the UAW, it's going to impact me. Maybe it might even impact my pension. I don't know. But I want to commit the Coalition of Labor Union Women, because we do have 28 different unions represented in our chapter, which includes UAW members. I want to work jointly with you so that we can see what we can do together. Because we know, as one of the brothers said already, what an injury to one is an injury to all. Thank you.